Please be seated. To start off today, I'd like to read you a letter I received back in the ninth grade. It's a little long, so bear with me. Dear gentlemen, thank you for coming to try out for the D2 boys basketball team. Fortunately, you have been not selected to... Oh. You ever hear of that expression called having a chip on your shoulder? It's when you have something that fuels you because you have something to prove. In my case, it meant proving people that I could do things that they said I couldn't from my past. The problem about having a chip on your shoulder is that it makes it a lot tougher to learn to let go. And letting go seems a pretty popular theme these days, in music especially. We have Let It Go from Frozen, Let Me Go by Maverick Sabre, Let It Go by James Bay, Let Her Go by Passenger, and the list goes on and on. But anyway, most of you here know that I play basketball. At one point or another, you've seen me in the gym, jacking up a few shots. But what most of you might not know is actually why I took up the game in the first place. Unlike other people in the sports they play, I never had that euphoric moment where I fell in love with the sport. Arguably, my appreciation for basketball came before I even knew how to play. I wasn't the most sociable kid through elementary and middle school and even through the beginning of high school. Even when I had friends, I was always that kid, the one who had to ask their friends to hang out because if they didn't, I wouldn't get invited, or when they're all walking on the sidewalk and, the sidewalk's already filled up, so you're walking alone behind them. In middle school especially, me and my family had concerns about that, but also my growing weight, so they asked me to pick up a sport that I wanted to pursue. Well, I really didn't know what to pick, but I saw an NBA game playing on the TV, and I said, sure, let's pick up a basketball. So lo and behold, I began to play basketball. And to be fair, I didn't know what I was doing at first. I didn't know how to shoot, and my dribbling was pretty lousy as well, so I decided to do the one thing that required zero skill, and I started trying to grab the ball from the other team. Defense became my calling card, and my team appreciated me for it. That was the important thing. My team appreciated me for it. For possibly one of the few times in my life up to that point, I was accepted as part of a community unconditionally. In a sense, I discovered my refuge, a place of belonging. So it made it all the more disappointing to me when I got cut from the basketball team in grade 9 in my first year here at Albi. Like any new student, I really didn't know where I fit in. But I had always felt like I had basketball to fall back on as a place of belonging. But when that was taken from me, I felt lost. I felt like people were doubting me and putting me down again, and the chip on my shoulder grew heavier. So I made it a goal to myself that I would try to make the varsity team, to prove to everyone in my past that I could do what they never thought I could, to prove to them that I did belong somewhere. So when I had initially tried it in grade 11, when I poured in everything I had and still got cut and was only later put onto the team as an extra, even though I'd achieved my goal, it felt empty. My chip grew heavier still, and it was beginning to drag me down with it. However, the point of me being up here isn't to tell you about my struggle playing basketball. Most of us have felt sadness, rejection, adversity, sometimes even grief throughout our lives. Each of us has an obstacle that we struggle to let go of. It can be anything, sometimes even within our own social circles. Sometimes it can be gossip and rumors, but no matter what it is, the heat of that anger consumes us, and it can make us driven by our frustration and hate of the situation. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with letting adversity fuel you. Adversity is one of the greatest motivators of all time, but your adversity cannot become who you are, because then you become the frustration it causes you. Breaking our chains can be what defines us. But what if the problem is that we don't want to let go of our chains because we don't want to? We want to let it define us. What happens then? When I took up debate all the way back in grade 9, I was pretty stubborn and hot-headed. In fact, the one word that my judges in my first tournament could actually agree to write on my ballots was the word arrogant. But hey, it's not my fault I thought that I was the best there. Kidding, but it was true. I was young, dumb, and not willing to take instruction. And I wanted to win, but I could never open enough to improve. I wanted to win, but in my own way. I spent too much of my energy and time looking for ways to argue with why my judges were wrong rather than trying to change myself. Even with my coaches who were trying to help me, I'd brush them off because I couldn't let go of my own ego. Even after Queens in grade 10, where some of the best university debaters on the circuit told me that I wasn't good enough, I didn't listen. Even after the Nora McRae in that year as well, when I came in dead last, I never thought that I had to improve. Then internationals in grade 11 happened. I'd worked my hardest for this competition, a full 8 months, still convinced that I could win in my own way. So I sat and watched as each of my teammates made a final in one of their categories. My own name was never called. Disappointed, I excused myself to go outside and took a walk around the block, wondering where I'd gone wrong. That was when my phone lit up in my pocket, and I saw my coach at the time, Mr. Williams, ask me to meet him outside at the steps of the school we were competing at. I waited for him, taking in the Toronto skyline around me. Eventually, he came, and he showed me a poem he found inspiring. I don't quite remember it, but I do remember the conversation that came afterwards. He told me, when you work for something, care for it, and pour yourself into it, you build yourself up. But when you give up, feel pity for yourself, act like you don't care, and don't learn to improve from your failures, that all goes to nothing as you tear yourself down. I was pretty cynical about the situation at the moment, so I looked at him, scoffed, and said, kind of hard to do when you're surrounded by skyscrapers. But he simply smiled at me and said, and you just get to build yourself higher. It was at this moment that I had learned to learn. I had learned to let go of my own ego, and I realized that my coaches, judges, teammates were not there to hinder me, but they wanted to see me grow. I learned to let go of arrogance and selfishness, and I learned to embrace the help around me. And now, on my way to nationals, I have to thank him for showing me how to let go. This year marks the third of my 4 years at Appleby in which I've been cut from the basketball team. When I opened up the email announcing I hadn't been chosen, I didn't feel anything, which in retrospect surprised me. It wasn't until some of the guys in the room across from me in polls began to ask me if I was angry about the situation, and I realized my response was, no, actually, I'm not angry. And I think what shocked me most was that this was the truth. After years of trying to convince myself that my anger and frustration was what defined me and what drove me, I'd seen another way. If I was fueled by frustration, it was all I would ever find and all I would ever accomplish. But when I had learned to let go of it, let go of the expectations of people who aren't even in my lives anymore, I had become happy. I had learned to let go. I've learned not only to let go of basketball, but the burden that came with it. I let go of a rough past that came with it. Letting go does not necessarily mean forgiving or forgetting, because nobody here can rectify whatever has been done in the past, but it means moving forward to a new era. It means learning that past struggles should not define who you decide to be in the future. Letting go is like being a bird with its wings tucked in free fall. Your anger keeps your wings tucked in fright, and it is only when you learn to relax and let go of that restraining anger that you can flap your wings and fly. So to finish off, I want to share an old Cherokee story that inspired my own change. Inside us, there is a war of two wolves. One is evil and is filled with anger, jealousy, greed, resentment, lies, inferiority, and ego. but the other is filled with good. It's filled with joy, peace, love, hope, humility, kindness, empathy, and truth. One day, a boy asked an old man which one of these wolves would win the war inside him. The old man replied, "The wolf you feed." But do not feed only your own wolf, but feed the wolves of others as well by giving your love, understanding, and acceptance rather than prejudice and hate. You don't need to be a leader by title to inspire and show others the way. I'm neither a prefect, chapel warden, house council member. I'm none of those things, but it doesn't stop me from trying to give a positive change to the people around me. You don't have to have a title to show other people the light in their lives. So please, join me in feeding our good wolves of spirits and rise to sing hymn 145, Good King Wenceslas.